Introduce, we have two very important experts, and to the extreme right is Dr. Ingle. He is the professor and head of department of PSM in Maulana Azad Medical College. I think more important for us, he is the program in charge for the geriatric medicine program in Delhi, and he has been the program in charge since the program had started, and he has a lot of experience about the students, about the program and how it is there. Then we have with us Dr. S. Anuradha, who is Associate Professor in the Department of Medicine in Maulana Azad Medical College. She is also one of the counselors. I am Dr. Ruchika Kuba. I am the program coordinator for this program. I would request Dr. Anuradha to tell us that, what are the various misconceptions that many of us do carry with us, and we need to clear them. So, Dr. Anuradha.
Thank you, Dr. Ruchika. Let us start by talking about some of the concepts that exist as far as geriatric medicine is concerned, and some of these issues that we need to address when we are dealing about geriatric patients. Now, this is a specific group of people or a specific age group of patients who need to be dealt with slightly different from other adults because of their body phenomenon of aging which is setting in, and this process which is normal, this physiological process of aging that sets in, has its own effect, and that is why it leads to a certain different kind of presentation among this group of patients. The first thing that we must remember always is that there are no stereotypes or typical elderly individuals. No two elderly individuals are the same because the body mechanisms are so separate. That is why the presentation of a same disease in one elderly is going to be different, maybe different from that in another elderly. For example, if we take a simple case of a pneumonia, in an adult if we take, a pneumonia has a very classic presentation. There will be a short history of fever, there will be some cough, expectoration, maybe some associated chest pain. And if these 3, 4, 5 classical features are there, we tend to think that the patient could be suffering from a respiratory tract infection or a pneumonia. Whereas in an elderly, a pneumonia can have very varied presentation. It can present just as alteration of sensorium. A patient is apparently well till yesterday, today morning has suddenly lost consciousness over a period of 24 to 48 hours. Nobody will think that it could be a respiratory problem. Fever may not be a common presentation at all in this group of patients. That is why, so that could be one presentation. There could be a slightly younger geriatric patient who could present with the classical features like a cough, like an expectoration or chest pain. There could be someone who just presents with hypotension and septicemia. So if you see that there is a simple problem like a pneumonia, yet that one problem is presenting with 3 or 4 different kinds of clinical presentations. So no two geriatric patients are the same, and each of them may present similarly or dissimilarly. So one must always remember in mind that there is no typical presentation of any disease in a geriatric population. The second thing that needs to be kept in mind is that any abrupt decline in any system or function is always due to disease and not due to normal aging. By this statement, what I mean is that suppose there is an abrupt decline of function of any system. For example, if a patient was conscious and suddenly becomes unconscious, so that is an abrupt decline in cognitive function. So then that would mean that it is because of disease. It is not due to generalized aging. A geriatric patient who was earlier walking well suddenly is unable to walk or move his joints or is having pain in any joint. One must specifically look for disease in that joint and not just dismiss it as, oh, it could be arthritis related to old age. So if there is an abrupt decline in any particular system, or any particular function of any organ. One must always think of a pathological process that is underlying and just not dismiss it as it could be just the process of aging. Normal aging is a very slow process. It does not produce sudden decline in functions. It's a very slow decline that occurs over a period of time that is actually not discernible. But this abrupt decline in function should always alert the possibility that there is an underlying pathological process or disease process that needs to be identified and treated appropriately. The third point that one must remember is healthy old age is possible. Now, this is a very important statement. Healthy old age is possible. Anybody who's old is not diseased. Please remember this. Healthy old age, people are able to maintain their normal lifestyle, normal functioning, should be able to drive a car, should be able to walk without support, should be able to hear properly, should be able to see properly. There may be a decline in these functions, but these changes or these decline in functions that occur can be taken care of. So it is possible to have a healthy, ripe age of 90 or 95 with a patient who is able to maintain his or her social activity, his otherwise normal daily activities of living, and healthy old age is very much possible, and that is what one must aim to attain in anybody who crosses a certain age. And the last point that one must always remember is that modification of risk factors, for example, risk factors like hypertension, smoking, sedentary lifestyle, these can attenuate the normal aging. By what I mean to say is that if a patient is a diabetic, say when he was middle aged before reaching the geriatric age group, if there is hypertension, if there is diabetes, if he is a smoker, if he can take care of these or any other risk factors, if one can identify them, and if we can modify these risk factors either by lifestyle modifications or by drugs or by whatever, it is possible to attenuate or decrease this process of aging, so to almost like a normal aging process. That what by this another corollary is that if there are these risk factors like smoking or diabetes, they are going to hasten the process of degeneration or hasten the process of aging, because they are going to act as significant comorbid risk factors for any adult geriatric patient. So these are some of the concepts that must always be kept in mind when we are dealing with geriatric population.
Now, Dr. Anuradha, as you are mentioning that an elderly naturally has got so many physiological changes which are happening in the body. So naturally the presentation of the disease should also be different, and the management will also be different.
Yes.
Now, what are the various disease patterns? How does it vary?
Yes. Since we have talked about that there are these kind of situations which are specific to this age group, that is why these patients have a very their patterns of disease presentation, their patterns of disease outcome are also quite different from that in a young adult, and this is what must be kept in mind while we approach a patient, while making a clinical diagnosis, while attempting to investigate these patients, and then also to initiate appropriate therapy, because all these three have to be kept in mind. Many of these patients can have atypical presentations, and that is how one of the most important things to remember is that they can have atypical presentations. I gave an example of a pneumonia. A pneumonia in a young adult will have fever, will have cough, expectoration, chest pain, whereas in an elderly patient there may be no fever, there may be very minimal cough or no production of sputum at all, and all these patients can present is with an alteration in sensorium. So one must remember that alteration of sensorium in an adult could be due to something as diverse as a pneumonia also. So classical presentations, textbook presentations of diseases that we learn in adult medicine cannot really be applied onto a geriatric population who present with very clinical features. So, a same disease may have 3 or 4 different kinds of presentations, and each of these may be very different, though it may be because of one cause. So an atypical presentation should always be kept in mind, and one must always remember the fact that fever is not a common presentation of infectious diseases. In a young adult, we would expect that any infection will manifest with fever, but in a geriatric population, fever is one of the less common methods of presentation of any illness. So these atypical presentations have to be very much kept in mind when we are trying to assess patients to find out what could be the underlying problem. The second thing that must be kept in mind is that many of these patients, if not most, will have pre-existing comorbid conditions. For example, it could be a diabetic and a hypertensive and somebody with early renal failure who now presents with a pneumonia. So there are going to be these multiple problems, maybe related to one system, maybe related to many systems, and most of these together are going to alter not only the overall clinical picture and the outcome, but also may even alter the presentation of that particular disease process. Hence, it is very important to remember this fact that the underlying comorbid or coexisting diseases are very important factors to always be kept in mind, because many a times even treatment modalities will need to be altered depending upon the underlying comorbid conditions. The third point one must always remember is that multiple problems exist in the elderly. They could be having visual impairment, they may be having hearing impairment, there could be osteoporosis, there could be osteoarthritis. All of them may be present together at the same time in one patient, and one may need to deal with all of them together. However, it is important to remember that what brings the patient to a physician or to a hospital may not be any of these diseases, but maybe something totally different. But ultimately, when we are aiming at care, we need to take care of each and every one of these aspects so that he has an overall healthy or a productive life. The next point one must always remember is that elderlies tend to develop symptoms at an earlier stage. For example, if a young adult, if you are talking about development of congestive cardiac failure because of, say, thyrotoxicosis, it will be a later presentation, much later stage. However, an elderly is likely to decompensate much earlier, much faster. So, for the same process, the decompensation that occurs in a young adult occurs much later as compared to elderly patients who tend to present earlier and tend to present with more severe disease also at times. And the last point that one must always remember is the diseases may present with a single presentation, meaning multiple diseases may have a single presentation. I gave one example of alteration in sensorium or obtundation in sensorium. Multiple diseases can present with just one presentation, that is of alteration of sensorium. For example, any infection can present with alteration in sensorium. Septicemia, urinary tract infection, pneumonias, anything, meningitis. Cerebrovascular accidents can present with obtundation of sensorium. Patients with a fall and head injury can present with obtundation of sensorium. So if you see, these are very different issues, these are very, very different diseases, but all of them are just presenting with one symptom. That's it, just one symptom, and that is alteration of sensorium. So the list of differential diagnosis for each symptom in a geriatric patient is very wide, very vast, and in fact this list of causes is almost similar if you see each and every differential diagnosis. So that these are a few things that need to be kept in mind.
So that means these are the things which will come by experience rather than by, of course we must know that these are the deviations and these are the presentations which are different than an adult, but then how to pick up comes with experience, and you need to know that which investigations to carry out, but that has to be decided.
Yes, you need to know what to expect. So for example, if a patient has come with altered sensorium, what it tells you is that you must evaluate the central nervous system, you must evaluate the respiratory system. Maybe you won't get any findings in respiratory evaluation, but still you will need to get a chest X-ray done. So this is just what it tells you, that multiple diseases may have a single common presentation, which always needs to be kept in mind when we are dealing with this group of patients who present quite differently from young adults.
Now, since you have said that there is such a deviation from the adult pattern, are there some skills also that we need to acquire as geriatricians which have to be different from us as physicians?
Well, skills in the sense that you must, because this is a very specific group of patients whom we are dealing with, some of them have multiple problems. They could be visually impaired, they could be hearing impaired, and it is a normal process. It is not something that is abnormal, it is normal. So when we are dealing with this group of patients, and sometimes these patients, these may be 85-year-old patients who tend to get a bit irritated if you keep on asking same questions. If you ask a patient again and again, are you having fever, are you having fever? So then what they tend to develop is they may get a little irritated. So you must always examine these patients with lot of patience and empathy. They deserve some extra time from a normal examination routine, because it takes a little bit more time to evaluate these patients. You may have to repeat your questions again, you may have to reframe your questions in such a manner that they can understand what you are asking.
How does this course cover geriatric psychiatry and how would it benefit him as a psychiatrist. I think I would ask Dr. Ingle, who is the program in charge of Maulana Azad Medical College, and he plans the posting schedule, and he will tell us by his experience and by this thing that how psychiatry is being dealt. Of course, I would certainly supplement his answer, and but I would I think because he is on the ground and handling more than me, he is delivering the program that we had planned, so I think he's the best person to answer this question, and I would also request Dr. Anuradha to supplement his answer. Yes, Dr.
Okay. Actually, there are two things: how you will be benefited, how patient will be benefited by acquiring all the skill to deal with the geriatric patients. And I think that both the things are very important. As far as first we are concerned about the patients, you know that in old age, not only physical conditions are deteriorated because of degenerative conditions. You know, the large number of disease conditions are there. But mental aspects also, they are definitely deteriorated. You will find that large number of psychological problems patients are facing, and not only psychological but psychosocial problems they are facing. So as a person having a psychiatry background, a psychology background, and entering into the field of PGDGM and dealing with the patient, you will be definitely more useful for the patient if you understand other aspects of the medical conditions. In fact, as far as we community medicine people are concerned, we are interested in a holistic approach, not only a disease treatment approach, but we are interested in a holistic approach, that all the aspect needs to be covered, the physical, mental and social. And you will agree with me that mental component is very important. If mental component is deteriorated or having some disturbance into it, then it gives rise to the psychosomatic diseases, large number of, and as a doctor we are aware about it. So that is one aspect of it, that yes, we need to. And in fact, as Dr. Ruchika told, that there is a specially PGDM students are posted with the psychiatry department, and they learn a lot, and they are so happy. After attending psychiatry posting, they are so happy that we have learned so many things. So in the process of your training PGDM contact course, you will be learning a lot and you will be benefited a lot. Another thing I would like to know, that with the changing demographic transition, our elderly people are going to increase day by day. So more and more geriatricians or geriatric specialists are being required. So I think that you are welcome and you will be benefited and patients will be benefited.
Dr. Anuradha, would you like to add?
Yes,
before I sum up?
No, that's okay. Dr. Ingle has summed it up very well, that it is it's a two-way process. How it benefits you and how it benefits the society and patients at large, and both have to be kept in mind. And Dr. Ingle has already said that there is always a period of posting within the Department of Psychiatry. At least at Maulana Azad, we insist on a posting in Psychiatry Department, and it is a very useful posting. And they learn to deal with all kinds of psychiatric problems during this posting, and that's how it helps them. And even in your practical examination, there are always a certain set of questions that are specifically set aside for psychiatric problems in elderly, and one must know how to deal with them, because these problems are always there, not just physical problems. There are a lot of issues that need to be dealt with in psychiatric aspects of elderly diseases.
Yeah, I would just like to add one more thing, and that is that posting to the psychiatry department, you may not learn a lot because you are seeing a lot of psychiatry patients already, but you will see more geriatric patients. But I think more important than that is something which Dr. Ingle did mention, and that is, when we do a specialization, we get a sort of a tunnel vision. And I think it is important that during this program, you will realize that this tunnel vision requires to be widened. I mean, I am not commenting on your personal capability, because every doctor, every clinician is different. But one does have a tendency to, see just one kind of a skill is developed, whereas when you will be doing this program, you will be multi-skilling yourself. So when you see a psychiatric geriatric patient, then you will be seeing the person as an individual, not just like a psychiatric patient. You will realize that we not only have to meet many times with his medical needs, but also with his social needs, his financial needs, his recreational needs, his vocational needs, and so on. So we have to develop our skills wholesomely. And as Dr. Anuradha also said, that as a psychiatrist we also will have to realize, and I think you may already be knowing that if we see a elderly with an altered sensorium, it could not be just a psychiatric or a neurological problem, it could be a pathology elsewhere, it could be a pathology in the respiratory, could be in the endocrine somewhere, could be even probably a cancer somewhere. So these are the things which we need to keep at the back of our mind. And I think more than that, another advantage is that at least the batchmates of your batchmates would benefit from your knowledge in psychiatry,
skills,
because we have a very heterogeneous target group, learner group, and they benefit from each other, because you all belong to not only different specializations, you also belong to different batches when you cleared your MBBS. There could be a person who could be just 25 in your batch, another one could be a 54-year-old man. So this we have many students who are above 50 as our students in geriatric medicine. So I think when you will come for your context session, you will slowly realize how interesting it can be. I think we will continue with the clinical skills, as I said, that what are the clinical skills that a doctor must have in addition to let's say.
Yes, we were coming back to our slide. We were talking about the clinical skills or the special kind of skills that are required while dealing with geriatric patients. Like we said, we must be very patient, and we must deal with these patients with a lot of empathy. Taking a detailed history is very important, and of course doing a very complete clinical examination. And like I said, you must identify relevant key issues. There may be many issues. He could be having osteoarthritis also, cervical spondylosis also, but we must identify the key important issue that has brought the patient now to you. Identify it, treat it, also identify all other existing issues, and then try to solve them one by one. Another thing, your treatment or your management starts much before you even talk to your patient. You can even observe your patient and make certain observations. For example, see how your patient walks into your room. Just observing the patient walking into your room. Can I have my slide, please?
Yes.
So make the patient physically and mentally comfortable. Just observe the patient while he is sitting. Is he comfortable? Is he breathless? Is he just falling off asleep? Is he not able to hold posture? These are very simple things that you can just see and observe while he is either sitting in your waiting area or he is lying down in the bed before you are going to observe him. Is he able to walk up to the bed? Can he climb up on the bed on his own? Does he need the help of his attendants or caregivers to help him up on the bed? What is the attitude of those caregivers? Are they just neglecting him like an old man and you go and climb on the bed and lie down? Or are they sympathetic, empathetic? Are they helping him really out? Are they concerned? Are they genuine caregivers? So these are all observations that you can draw, and all of them have relevance in management of the patient. So you can just observe these things before you actually go down to taking a good history and doing a clinical examination.
In the website, if other information is available or other other programs which may be useful to the students, and I would just like to tell you that we are at IGNOU trying to make a database of all the geriatricians, and I would like that all of you please send me your details either through the induction meeting, or you can email me your contact details, your addresses, so that we can add to the database of all the students who are or have completed the geriatric medicine. I would also request you to please choose your group leader, because this group leader, you can send me the contact number of the group leader, so that you see, when we have a change in the teleconferencing schedule, we want to send some information about a conference or something, we can directly just tell about say 15 group leaders all over the country, and then they can disseminate to the group, the whole group, like your Jaipur group. You can choose one among yourself. You can please you can fax me today itself in the teleconferencing, or you can email me as it is convenient to you. Thank you.